I married a woman younger than my daughter and asked her to show some respect by introducing my wife as her new mother at her wedding. She refused, so I did it myself during my speech, and everyone laughed. Now my entire family says I humiliated her, and my own daughter is calling me a disgusting old man. I'm 59, and I remarried last year after being a widower for a decade. My late wife and I had been together for over 20 years before she passed away from breast cancer. Losing her was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. For a long time I didn't really live, I just existed. My daughter Willow was in her early 20s back then and had just started her career. She moved out, built her own life, and I was proud of her. We stayed in touch, but we were never the kind of father-daughter duo that calls every day. We've always been different people. She's outspoken and fiery, I'm quiet and reserved, but we loved each other, or at least I thought we did. I met my current wife Delilah through a volunteer group connected to the same cancer foundation my first wife had received treatment from. I wasn't looking for anything, it just happened slowly. We were both volunteering, both there for personal reasons, both just trying to put something good into the world. Delilah is 29, which means she's younger than Willow. I know how that looks to some people. I know it makes for easy jokes or raised eyebrows, but it wasn't about that. She's kind, patient, and grounded in a way most people aren't. I hadn't felt that kind of peace in years. She knew about my late wife before we even had our first coffee together. She respected that part of my life, never once tried to replace it. When things got serious, I told Willow right away. I thought honesty would help. She didn't take it well. Her exact words were that it was pathetic. She said it was embarrassing to have a father who couldn't handle being alone. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just shock or discomfort. I didn't push her to accept Delilah, only asked that she be civil. I believed that with time, she'd see who Delilah really was. That never happened. Over the next year, Willow made no effort to get to know Delilah. She skipped every dinner invite. When we got married quietly at City Hall, Willow didn't come. She told me she couldn't stand by and watch me throw away my dignity. I should have realized then that things were never going to be normal again, but I still hoped. Fast forward to Willow's wedding this year. Despite everything, she invited me, though not warmly. I noticed Delilah's name wasn't on the invitation. I assumed it was an oversight until Willow told me she could come, but would have to sit at the back so people wouldn't talk. That hit me hard. I tried to reason with her in private before the wedding. I told her I just wanted her to treat Delilah with respect, that introducing her as her stepmother wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about acknowledging reality. Willow said she didn't owe Delilah anything and that my marriage was a midlife crisis, not a family event. I probably should have stayed home after that, but I couldn't imagine missing my only child's wedding. The day itself was beautiful, at least from the outside. I watched Willow walk down the aisle and felt that rush of pride every parent feels. But even then, I could feel the tension. People were whispering. Some of her friends kept glancing toward Delilah and smirking. It was cruel in a way I didn't expect from adults. Delilah tried to stay composed, but I could tell it was getting to her. She's always handled everything with grace. But sitting there being openly mocked was too much for anyone. When it came time for the speeches, I stood up. I hadn't planned to say much. I just wanted to thank everyone and say something kind about my daughter and her new husband. I started talking about how proud I was, how much Willow meant to me, and how grateful I was that she'd found someone who loved her. Then I looked at Delilah and thought about everything she'd endured quietly for months. The disrespect, the exclusion, the snide remarks. I thought about how she never once fought back or badmouthed my daughter. So I said, as part of my speech, that I wanted to thank my wonderful wife, who had brought joy back into this family, and that I hoped one day my daughter could accept her as the mother figure she deserved again. The room went dead silent for a second, then a few people laughed. Not in a kind way, in that snickering way. Willow's face changed instantly. She looked shocked, then furious. She stood up and left the room. I didn't finish my speech. I just sat down. The rest of the night was chaos. People were whispering, avoiding me. I went outside to find Willow, but she wouldn't talk to me. Her husband told me it would be best if I left, so I did. Delilah cried the whole drive home. I kept telling her it wasn't her fault. I still believe it wasn't. Since then, Willow hasn't spoken to me. She blocked me on everything. The story going around is that I humiliated her on the most important day of her life. My siblings have sided with her completely. One of them called me a disgusting old man for even marrying Delilah. Another said I made a fool of myself trying to force my daughter to accept something she didn't have to. Nobody wants to hear my side, that I never demanded anything more than basic kindness, that all I wanted was for Delilah not to be treated like dirt. I didn't mean to embarrass anyone. I just wanted to include my wife, the woman who stood by me while my own family turned cold. Maybe the wording was wrong. Maybe it came out harsher than I meant. But I can't see how asking for decency deserves this kind of punishment. Delilah feels guilty now, thinks she's the reason Willow won't speak to me. I tell her she isn't. The truth is, I think Willow never wanted me to move on. She liked the version of me who was broken and alone. The grieving father she could pity. The moment I found happiness again, it made me the villain. I don't know where to go from here. I've tried reaching out to apologize, not for what I said, but for how it made her feel. No response. Update 1. A little over 3 months since my daughter's wedding, and after that night, Willow blocked me on everything. No text, no call, not even a message asking why. She just vanished. The only thing I've heard from her since then was through relatives repeating whatever version of events she decided to tell. Apparently, I publicly degraded her, made her wedding about myself, and forced everyone to acknowledge my young wife. None of that was true. What I said during that speech wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't meant to be provocative. It came out of emotion, a moment of wanting to make Delilah feel seen after being treated like a stranger all day. I didn't think it would turn into this. A few weeks ago, I found out Willow had been telling people that Delilah was the reason our family broke apart, that she manipulated me, and that I'd changed since marrying her. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. It's easier for her to blame someone new than face how cruel she's been. We haven't been invited to a single family gathering since the wedding. There was a small barbecue at my sister's house in early summer, something we've gone to every year, and I only found out about it from photos on Facebook. Delilah saw them first. She tried to hide it, but I noticed. I told her not to take it personally. She said she wasn't surprised. Delilah and I spend most weekends just the two of us now. We take short drives, go hiking, volunteer together like we used to. I've stopped checking my phone for messages that won't come. It's quieter, but in a strange way, there's peace in that too. A few nights ago was my birthday. Delilah organized a small dinner at our house, just us, a few close friends, and an empty table set aside in case anyone from my side of the family showed up. No one did. Not one person called. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. But Delilah's parents came. They brought a homemade cake, sang off-key, and treated me like I'd been part of their family for years. I realized halfway through that evening that this was the first birthday in years where I didn't spend the night thinking about what I'd lost. I thought about what I still had: a woman who genuinely cares for me, a quiet home, a chance to start over without constant judgment hanging over my head. After everyone left, Delilah apologized again. She said she wished she hadn't come into my life if it meant costing me my daughter. I told her she didn't cost me anything. All she did was make it easier to see who really cared about me and who just liked having someone to criticize. Update 2. Several months since my last update, and until a few weeks ago, I didn't think I'd hear from Willow again. Then, one afternoon, she called. No text beforehand, no "can we talk," just a call out of nowhere. I picked up because, even after everything, I still hoped she might want to talk things through. Her tone was polite at first, almost mechanical. She told me she was pregnant and due later this year. I congratulated her, genuinely. I was happy for her. But before I could say much more, she said something that made my stomach drop. She said she wanted her child to know their grandfather, but only if Delilah wasn't involved. I asked what she meant. She said she didn't want Delilah anywhere near her child. Not at visits, not at holidays, not in photos. She said she'd rather pretend Delilah didn't exist. I told her I couldn't agree to that. That I wouldn't exclude my wife from my life to earn conditional contact with my own grandchild. The call ended shortly after. She said something like, "Then you've made your choice," and hung up. That night, I didn't tell Delilah right away. I didn't want to upset her, but she could tell something was off. I told her eventually, and she just sat there quietly for a while. Then she said she understood. She always says that, "I understand," even when it's something she shouldn't have to. The next few weeks were rough. My siblings, who hadn't said much since the wedding, suddenly started calling again, not to reconnect, but to tell me I should think carefully about choosing Delilah over my daughter. One of them said I was throwing away the rest of my family for a woman half my age. They talk like I don't already know the age difference, like I haven't heard it 1,000 times already. I didn't fight with them. I just said that if they only wanted to talk to me to take sides, there wasn't much left to say. that ended those calls pretty fast. A few days later, I started getting messages from people I didn't even know, distant relatives, old family friends. Things like, "You should be ashamed," and "Your wife ruined your daughter's wedding." Turns out, Willow's been telling people that Delilah seduced me while I was still grieving, and that she took advantage of me when I was vulnerable. It's a complete lie. Delilah met me years after my first wife passed. She knew about her, respected her memory, even went with me once a year to the cancer center where I still volunteer. Delilah never tried to replace my late wife. She just brought some light back into a very dark life. But it's easier, I guess, for people to believe a story where I'm some old fool and Delilah's a gold digger. When Delilah found out about the rumors, she broke down. She doesn't usually cry about this stuff, she tries to stay strong, but that night, she just fell apart. She said she was tired of being hated by people she's never even spoken to. She said she wished she'd never met me because then I wouldn't be losing my daughter and my family wouldn't be tearing her apart. That one hurt more than anything, Willow said. Because Delilah meant it in the kindest way. She really believed she'd ruined my life just by loving me. I told her she hadn't ruined anything, that I was a grown man who made his own choices, and that the only thing she ever did was make me happy. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. For a while after that, things were tense. Delilah stopped coming with me to volunteer because she said she didn't want to cause a scene if someone recognized her. I told her no one would, but she insisted. So she's been staying home more. She's quieter lately. What's been strange though is how other people react once they actually meet her. A few neighbors who didn't know the full story invited us over recently for dinner. They treated Delilah like a normal person, not as a scandal or a punchline. And by the end of the night, one of them even pulled me aside to say how lucky I was. That small moment meant more than I can explain. Just having someone treat Delilah kindly, without judgment, reminded me that the entire world isn't as cruel as the circle I grew up in. Still, I can't pretend this hasn't changed me. I've been keeping more to myself lately. I used to call my siblings every week. Now I barely check my phone. When I do, it's mostly messages I don't open, forwarded gossip, links to Willow's social media posts that I wish people would stop sending. Update 3. Things have been mostly quiet on my end, or at least they were until recently. For the most part, Delilah and I have just been trying to live our lives without thinking about what everyone else thinks of us. That's easier said than done when you're still getting the occasional text or voicemail about how you could still fix things if you apologize, but we've done our best to ignore it. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I got a message from someone I didn't recognize. It turned out to be one of Willow's bridesmaids. She said she'd been reading through some of the rumors floating around and felt guilty staying silent. She wanted to tell me what really happened before and after the wedding. Apparently, months before the wedding, Willow had told several people that Delilah and I had met years earlier when Delilah worked for me, and that our relationship started as an affair. The bridesmaid said Willow told the story in such a confident way that everyone believed it. She even had details that made it sound convincing that Delilah used to help out at the office, that we'd kept things secret until my wife passed, that I'd moved her into the house right after the funeral, none of which was true. The reality is simple. I met Delilah through the cancer volunteer group I've mentioned before. I'd been volunteering there for years in my late wife's memory, and Delilah joined the program well after that. There was never any overlap with my marriage. No scandal, no secret. We got to know each other over time. We became close because she was patient, thoughtful, and she understood what loss looked like. She was the first person I'd met who didn't treat me like a broken man who needed to be left in the past. The bridesmaid said that after the wedding, when everything blew up, Willow doubled down. She told people that Delilah made me cut her out, and that I'd been manipulated into thinking Willow was the problem. That's when the lies really spread. Families started choosing sides, and because Willow's version was more dramatic, it traveled faster. The bridesmaid said she stayed quiet at the time because she didn't want to cause drama in her own circle, but now she regretted it. She also mentioned that Willow's husband eventually found out about the lies, and it led to a huge argument between them. He apparently felt blindsided that she'd spent so much time attacking me and Delilah while pretending everything was fine at home. Not long after that, they separated. I didn't ask for more details. It was enough to know the fallout wasn't just ours anymore. I told Delilah what I'd learned, and she didn't say much at first. She just looked tired. I think part of her hoped that if the truth ever came out, things would somehow get better. But that's not how people like my daughter operate. Once they decide you're the villain, there's no coming back from it. Delilah said she was glad I had closure, but she didn't want me to contact Willow again. I think she's right. Still, I sent one message. Just one. I told Willow I knew the truth now. I told her she could hate me if that made her feel better, but to stop spreading lies about my wife. I didn't accuse her of anything or demand an apology. I just wanted her to stop. I never got a response, and I don't expect one. Final update. Enough time has passed that I can see things more clearly now. Delilah and I are still together. We're living in a small coastal town now, about 3 hours from where I spent most of my life. The move wasn't a big, dramatic decision. It just made sense. My old house had too many memories tied to the past, my late wife, my daughter's wedding, and all the tension that came after. The house started to feel like a museum for people who didn't want me in their lives anymore. So we sold it, quietly. We found a smaller place near the water. It's not fancy, but it's peaceful. Most days are simple. We walk the dogs in the morning, have breakfast at the same little cafe by the marina, and spend a lot of time around a small group of people we've met here. None of them care about the age gap. They just know us as the couple who are always together and who host dinners with too much food. It's a good kind of quiet, the kind that doesn't feel like something's missing. I haven't spoken to Willow since the last message I sent her. I didn't expect to. I heard through my sister that she had her baby a few months ago. A boy. She didn't reach out, and I didn't intrude. I sent a short card and a small gift, nothing sentimental, just a simple note wishing her health and happiness. There wasn't a response, which I expected. I don't hold any anger about it anymore. I've learned that sometimes you have to stop trying to fix things that someone else keeps breaking on purpose. I used to replay that wedding day over and over in my head, thinking about what I should have said differently. But the truth is, there's no version of that day that would have ended any other way. If I had said nothing, she still would have found another reason to make Delilah the villain. That moment didn't destroy anything that wasn't already cracked. It just exposed it. Delilah and I talked once about what we'd do if Willow ever reached out. She said she'd support whatever I decided, but that she wouldn't put herself in the middle again. I told her she wouldn't have to. If that day ever comes, I'll handle it quietly. No expectations, no apologies left to trade. Just a conversation between two adults who once shared a life. I know the age gap still bothers some people. It doesn't bother us. Delilah isn't with me for security or money. I don't have much of either, and she knows it. What she gives me is steadiness. She makes the ordinary parts of life feel worth showing up for, and she's kind, which is something I didn't realize how much I missed until I saw how rare it was. It's strange, but I don't feel the same sense of family obligation I used to. I thought that was something you never lost, that no matter what happened, you'd still want to keep trying. But sometimes the only way to stay sane is to let people believe whatever helps them sleep. I gave my daughter everything I could, and when it wasn't enough, I stopped offering myself up for punishment. That doesn't make me a bad father, it just makes me human. So this is where I'll leave things. My life now isn't what I expected when I first posted here, but it's calm and honest, and that's more than I can say for most of my years before this. I don't feel the need to defend my marriage anymore. I love my wife, and she loves me, and that's enough. Maybe one day Willow will change her mind. Maybe she won't. Either way, I'm not waiting for that to happen. I've already built a home again, even if it looks different than the one I imagined.